Hello again. This is Dan Alasso with History for Today, and this morning I wanted to talk briefly about some thoughts that I've been having about naming conventions, as I try to take all of these ideas from a variety of different descriptions of how to take smart notes and of Niklas Luhmann and other people's systems and turn them into something that I can use myself and that I can teach to my students. So to begin with, here's a quote from Luhmann. "When I read a book, I do it in the following way. I always have a note card on hand on which I note the ideas of certain pages. On the back side, I record the bibliographical information. When I have read through the book, then I go through these notes and consider what could be useful for notes that have already been written. Thus, I always read with an eye toward the notability of books." And this is something that Niklas Luhmann said in 1997, quoted by Krajewski in 2013. But Krajewski goes on to ask, how does one succeed in endowing the slipbox with this ability for surprise, supported by an indispensable abundance of information? In a word, time, with which complex structures will develop without outside assistance. These will arise so long as it is guaranteed that the user injects information in the form of small textual building blocks. Facts, thought fragments, longer excerpts, all the way to completely predetermined lines of reasoning with sufficient persistence. And moreover, that these be tied into the existing referential structure. So that's a very hopeful statement. That's the thing that we're all looking forward to, right? The magic that happens when the slipbox reaches critical mass. Many people have also observed that the organization of the notes in Luhmann's box was based nearly entirely on just the numbering system. There was an index, but it doesn't seem to have been an organizational tool, but rather a quick finding aid. The point, apparently, was to find an entry point and then to follow the trails of ideas as the notes branched off from one to the next. Now, many people who have tried to implement a note system inspired by Luhmann have often created categories of notes. Ahrens talks about a hierarchy of note types. Fleeting notes first, which he describes as mere reminders of what is in your head. These are disposable once you've added them into a permanent note. And the term permanent note seems to have taken on an aura of importance, where when I read closer, Ahrens seems only to be saying that these are permanent notes in your slipbox. Another type of note that Ahrens mentions is the literature note, which he says Luhmann kept separately along with the bibliographic information on the text that he read. Ahrens says, whenever he read something, he would write the bibliographic information on one side of a card and make brief notes about the content on the other side. These notes would end up in the bibliographic slipbox. And this seems to kind of conform with the quote from Luhmann at the beginning. Based on this, Ahrens advises his reader in how to take smart notes to keep their literature notes together with the bibliographical details in one place, your reference system. Andy Matuszak, on the other hand, focuses his work on producing what he calls evergreen notes. He describes these as the fundamental unit of knowledge work, and he suggests that a person can kind of judge their effectiveness as a knowledge worker by the number of evergreen notes that they produce per day. These notes should be concise, atomic, meaning that they should be about one thing, but they should also capture the entirety of that thing, concept-oriented, and densely linked. The point of evergreen notes, it seems, is that they capture the ideas that may have come from a variety of different texts or sources, which you have decided are worth pursuing. They're different, Andy says, from the longer notes that you may write about a book, which will contain a lot of discrete ideas. So in a sense, these evergreen notes are the place where the information that I'm taking from a variety of sources will begin to become my own thoughts. There are other systems that people have developed that revolve around what are called maps of content. I don't object to this, although I do wonder whether it has the potential to put the cart kind of in front of the horse and begin categorizing stuff that might be better left to self-organize organically. If I've already got a ton of stuff in my vault that's got a particular tag on it, then I guess I don't see a problem in occasionally turning tags on and looking at the groupings. On the other hand, I'm not sure if I want to make buckets on the front end that I feel compelled to put new items into. There's a lot of potential confusion also, I think, if I call the things that I'm doing by these names that already have a history. So maybe instead I will describe and tag my workflow like this. First, I'll have sources, which are texts or lectures or random data from wherever. And these are actually external to the system, and they lead to first a bibliographical entry, which I'll tag bib, and then a summary, which I'll tag sum. And this will be a summary of the text and my brief comments, what up to this point I've been calling reading notes. And this will lead to a note, which can be a fact, or it can be an argument of an author that I want to record. I can also include biographical notes on the authors, general data, etc. Many of these will be things that I will have double bracketed as I've been writing the summaries of sources. And they will lead ultimately to my ideas, which I'll tag just as idea. And these will be my thoughts, usually based on the materials that I've been processing. Like Andy's evergreens, they should be concise, focused, and linked not only to their sources and their supporting data, but as much as possible to each other. I sort of suspect, without any evidence at this point to back me up yet, that a lot of the clustering and a lot of the linkage that I'm going to see as my vault develops will be at the note level at first, since I imagine there will be many more notes than ideas to start with. I also imagine that just by calling these intermediate, permanent, but not necessarily exalted notes simply note, rather than permanent note or something like that, that I will have taken a bit of the pressure off of myself and ultimately off of my students when I teach this. And then calling the last step my idea rather than evergreen note will also help me to focus my attention on that transition from other people's thoughts to my own thoughts. I'll have to see how this works in practice, but it seems like a way forward. The key to all of this, I suspect, is returning to notes and ideas regularly to think about them, elaborate them, and to connect new material to them. The key to everything seems to be the density of linkages. Andy refers to a number of retrieval studies and spaced repetition studies, so I'll probably return regularly to his notes and read more of them and read some of the studies that he cites, in addition to elaborating my own graph. And maybe I'll have something to say about those as I continue to not only develop my note system, but explore retrieval practice. But that's been what I've been thinking about this morning. So I hope people found that a little bit interesting. Thanks very much for listening, and I'll see you again